The alarm split through the council chamber, like a knife through silence. Ambassador Krell's three eyes widened as the holographic display materialized above the central platform, showing 17 Vorkan warships breaking formation. They weren't heading toward the designated patrol zone. They were turning toward the blue planet in Sector 7. Earth. Stop them! High Chancellor Thrain slammed 4 of his appendages against the control console. Send the override codes now. Ember. Now. Different. Different. The communications officer, a Diluvian named Pax, worked frantically at her station. The codes aren't working, Chancellor. They've disabled all external command protocols. Krell felt his breathing sacs tighten. The humans had been part of the galactic community for only 3 cycles. They were still learning the basics of interstellar politics. They had no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, nothing that could stop a Vorkan assault fleet. How long until they reach the planet? Thrain demanded. 18 minutes at current speed, Pax replied, her voice cracking. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 40 different species shouted over each other. Some called for immediate military intervention. Others argued about jurisdiction and protocol. Krell watched the display in silent horror as the Vorkan ships accelerated. Commander Vex of the Vorkan delegation stood in the center of the room, his scaled face showing no emotion. My people have made their choice. The humans violated the Kessler Accord when they refused to surrender their weapons research. They didn't know about the Accord, Krell shouted across the chamber. We haven't even finished the translation protocols for their languages. Ignorance is not innocence, Vex replied coldly. Thrain activated his emergency broadcast system. This is the High Chancellor to all Council military forces. I am ordering immediate interception of the Vorkan fleet. Authorization code Omega-7. Our nearest ships are 40 minutes away, the tactical officer announced. We can't reach them in time. The display showed Earth growing larger as the Vorkan ships approached. Krell had visited that world once. He remembered the diversity of their cultures, the passion in their primitive but beautiful art, the way they looked at the stars with wonder instead of fear. Can we warn them? Someone asked. Their communication systems are too slow, Pax said. By the time they receive our message and decode it, the Vorkan will already be in orbit. Krell moved closer to the display. He could see the Vorkan weapon systems charging, their distinctive energy signatures building to devastating levels. In minutes, they would unleash enough firepower to sterilize the human homeworld. Then something unexpected happened. The display flickered. New contacts appeared around Earth. Hundreds of them. Small signatures, but moving fast. Too fast. What are those? Thrain leaned forward. Pax's fingers danced across her console. I'm reading them as human vessels. But that's impossible. According to our records, they don't have that many ships. They barely have a functioning space program. The Vorkan fleet slowed. Even Vex looked confused. Get me a visual, Krell commanded. The screen shifted to show live footage from the lead Vorkan ship. What appeared made every being in the council chamber freeze. The human vessels were nothing like the clumsy shuttles and research stations they had observed before. These were sleek, angular craft, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to absorb sensor scans. They moved with precision that suggested advanced artificial intelligence or neural piloting systems the Council had never detected. Where did they get that technology? Vex demanded, his composure finally cracking. Captain Jake Morris sat in the command chair of the defense platform, hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. The main screen showed the Vorkan fleet slowing their approach as they encountered the first wave of interceptors. Distance to target fleet? Jake asked. 200,000 kilometers and closing. Lieutenant Amy Chen reported from Tactical. Launch sequence initiated across all platforms. We have 412 drones active. Another 600, spooling up. Jake allowed himself a thin smile. The Vorkan had made a critical error. They assumed humanity's public face was its only face. They didn't know about the black budget programs, the decades of preparation, the paranoia that came naturally to a species that had spent millennia fighting itself. Communications: send the prepared message on all Vorkan frequencies. The communications officer nodded. Sending now, sir. Back in the council chamber, Vex received the transmission. The human language was rough, mechanical, but the translation was clear enough. Vorkan fleet, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space with hostile intent. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately, or we will interpret your actions as a declaration of war. Vex sneered. Empty threats. They can't possibly have the firepower to stop us. But Krell noticed something. The Vorkan commander on the display looked nervous. His crew was running diagnostics, recalibrating sensors. They were seeing something that troubled them. Vorkan fleet, you have 30 seconds to comply. The human message continued. Vex opened a channel to his ships. All vessels, ignore the human posturing. Continue attack approach. Target their major population centers. The Vorkan warships accelerated again, weapons charging to full power. The council representatives watched in tense silence as the human interceptors moved to engage. Then the situation changed in an instant. The human drones didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they released clouds of what looked like metallic dust. The particles spread rapidly, creating a shimmering barrier between Earth and the Vorkan fleet. When the lead Vorkan ship tried to push through, its shields flickered and died. The particles were disrupting their energy fields. Clever, Thrain muttered. Electromagnetic chaff, with a nanoscale structure. But that wasn't all. As the Vorkan ships struggled with their failing shields, the human vessels launched their actual offensive. Missiles streaked from hidden positions across the lunar surface and from orbital platforms disguised as debris. These weren't the chemical rockets the humans had demonstrated for the Council. These were fusion drive projectiles, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The first Vorkan ship took 3 hits in rapid succession. Its hull cracked open, atmosphere venting into space. The crew never had time to escape. Jake watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Target the command ship. Fire, Solution, Delta. Solution Delta locked, Amy confirmed. Firing. 6 missiles launched simultaneously from different angles. Their approach vectors calculated to overwhelm point defense systems. The Vorkan command ship managed to destroy 4 of them, but the remaining 2 struck home. One pierced the engine section, causing a cascade failure. The other detonated against the bridge superstructure. In the council chamber, Vex staggered backward, as if physically struck. No. This is impossible. Your fleet is being destroyed, Krell said quietly. Order them to withdraw. We are the Vorkan. We have conquered 40 systems. Another ship exploded on the display, then another. The human forces were systematically dismantling the fleet with terrifying efficiency. Their weapons were precise, their tactics sophisticated, their coordination flawless. How long have they been preparing for this? Thrain asked no one in particular. Pax pulled up historical data. According to our first contact reports, the humans have been watching our species for decades. They've been intercepting our communications, studying our technology, learning our weaknesses. They knew we were here long before we knew about them. They let us think they were primitive, Krell realized. They showed us only what they wanted us to see. On the screen, the remaining Vorkan ships were breaking formation, trying to escape. But the human interceptors were faster. They herded the Vorkan vessels away from Earth, forcing them into a narrow corridor of space. Then orbital defense platforms that had been dormant and undetected activated, revealing themselves as massive railgun emplacements. The weapons fired in sequence. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible velocities. 3 more Vorkan ships were crippled in seconds. Only 6 remained combat-capable, and they were fleeing at maximum speed. Jake received a direct communication from Earth Defense Headquarters. Platform Commander Morris. You are authorized to allow the Vorkan retreat. Let them carry the message back to their empire. End quote. Menting. Acknowledged, Jake replied. He opened a channel to the fleeing ships. Vorkan fleet. You are permitted to withdraw. Return to your territory and inform your leaders that Earth is not defenseless. Any future aggression will be met with total destruction of your military assets. This is your only warning. 1. The Vorkan ships jumped to faster than light speed, vanishing from the display. The battle had lasted less than 7 minutes. The human interceptors began returning to their hidden bases, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. In the council chamber, silence reigned. Finally, Thrain spoke. Get me a direct communication line to Earth's government. Immediately. Krell looked at Vex, who stood motionless, his scales pale with shock. 48 hours later, Ambassador Krell stood in a shuttle approaching Earth for the second time in his life. The first visit had been ceremonial, full of awkward translations and cultural misunderstandings. This time felt different. The humans had extended an invitation to the entire council leadership, and refusal wasn't an option. Approaching designated coordinates, the pilot announced. Earth defense is guiding us in. Through the viewport, Krell could see what the council had missed before. Satellites that looked like space junk were actually weapons platforms. Asteroids in stable orbits had been hollowed out and converted into fortresses. The moon itself was covered in installations that sensor sweeps had classified as mining operations. Everything had been hiding in plain sight. They played us, Thrain said from the seat beside Krell. From the very beginning, the shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing at a facility in the mountains of what the humans called Colorado. As the doors opened, Krell was greeted by a woman in a crisp, military uniform. Her name tag read General Lisa Grant. Welcome to Cheyenne Mountain, she said in perfect galactic standard. The council delegation was led through corridors carved deep into solid rock. Krell noticed the thickness of the blast doors, the redundant power systems, the soldiers positioned at every intersection. This wasn't just a government building. It was a fortress designed to survive anything. President Kevin Murphy waited in a conference room lined with screens showing real-time data from across the solar system. He was younger than Krell expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Please, sit, Murphy said, gesturing to chairs designed for various alien anatomies. I imagine you have questions. You deceived us, Vex growled. He had insisted on attending despite his people's humiliation. You pretended to be a primitive species, while secretly building an armada. Murphy's expression didn't change. We didn't deceive anyone. We simply didn't advertise our full capabilities. In galactic politics, that seems like common sense. You violated the first contact protocols, Thrain said. You were supposed to share your technological level honestly. We did, Murphy replied. We showed you our civilian space program. Everything we demonstrated was true. We just didn't mention our military infrastructure. The protocols don't require revealing classified defense systems. Krell had to admire the logic, even if it made him uncomfortable. How long have you been aware of the galactic community? Krell. I remember. Murphy nodded to one of his aides, who activated a screen. It showed grainy footage from 1947, depicting a crash site in a desert. Our first concrete evidence came 79 years ago. A scout ship from the Rethian Collective malfunctioned and crashed in New Mexico. We recovered technology that shouldn't have existed according to our physics. That started everything. The screen changed to show decades of progression. Laboratories analyzing alien materials. Engineers reverse engineering propulsion systems. Scientists developing new weapons based on energy signatures they had detected from space. We spent the next 80 years preparing, Murphy continued. We knew you were out there. We knew you were watching. We knew that eventually, someone would come. We just didn't know if they would come in peace or war. So you prepared for war, Krell said quietly. We prepared for survival. Murphy corrected. When you finally made official contact 3 years ago, we had a choice. Reveal everything and potentially make ourselves a target. Or maintain operational security and hope for the best. We chose security. And look what happened, Vex spat. My people attacked because they thought you were weak. Your people attacked because they're aggressive conquerors who saw an opportunity, Murphy said coldly. Don't blame your nature on our caution. Thrain raised one of his appendages. The question now is what happens next. Earth has proven itself capable of defending against a major military force. That changes the galactic balance significantly. Murphy stood and walked to a window overlooking a vast underground hangar. Hundreds of spacecraft filled the space, each one bristling with weapons. I'll be direct, he said. Humanity doesn't want war with the Council or any member species. We want trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. But we also won't be bullied or threatened. We've seen what happens to weak species in your galaxy. They get conquered or vassalized. That won't be Earth's fate. You're positioning yourself as a military power, Krell observed. We're positioning ourselves as a species that can't be pushed around, Murphy clarified. There's a difference. We don't want to dominate anyone. We just want to be left alone to develop on our own terms. The general who had greeted them stepped forward with a data chip. This contains a full inventory of our defensive capabilities, minus a few classified details. We're sharing this information as a gesture of good faith. We want the Council to understand exactly what they're dealing with. ATS. We want the Council to understand. In the Talatine one, Thrain took the chip with one appendage, his expression unreadable. This level of militarization will concern many species. Let them be concerned, Murphy said. We didn't start the aggression. We're just making sure we can finish it if necessary. Krell felt a chill run through his body. The humans weren't bluffing. They had spent decades preparing for this moment, building weapons and strategies, while presenting a facade of harmless curiosity to the galaxy. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. What about the Vorkin? Vex asked quietly. Will you retaliate against our homeworld? Murphy turned to face him directly. No. We destroyed your attack fleet to protect our home. That's done. Unless the Vorkin Empire launches another attack, we have no quarrel with your people. But understand this. If you come at us again, we won't stop at destroying a fleet. We'll make sure you can't threaten anyone for a very long time. The threat hung in the air like a blade. 6 weeks after the Council's visit to Earth, Krell received an encrypted message at his quarters on the Council station. The sender was anonymous, but the encryption pattern was human. He opened it carefully, half expecting some kind of political manipulation. What he found was far worse. The message contained intelligence reports, intercepted communications, and tactical assessments. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. The Vorkin weren't done. They were assembling a massive fleet in the outer reaches, calling in allies and mercenary forces. The target was obvious. Krell went immediately to Thrain's office. The High Chancellor was reviewing trade agreements when Krell burst through the door without announcement. We have a problem, Krell said, uploading the data to Thrain's display. The Chancellor's eyes widened as he absorbed the information. How did the humans get this intelligence? Does it matter? If this is accurate, the Vorkin are preparing to launch an invasion force 10 times the size of their first attack. They've convinced 3 other species to join them. They're calling it a coalition to contain the human threat. Thrain's skin shifted to a darker shade, a sign of deep concern among his species. When? The humans estimate 2 months, maybe less. We need to convene an emergency council session, Thrain said, already activating communication protocols. 4 hours later, the council chamber was packed. Representatives from every member species crowded the space, many of them angry at being summoned with so little notice. Krell stood at the center platform, the human intelligence displayed for all to see. This is propaganda. Vex shouted from his section. The humans are trying to turn the council against the Vorkin. Then, explain these communications. Krell shot back, highlighting specific transmissions. These are your military codes, your ship registries, your logistics planning. We've verified the authenticity. A representative from the Draxian Confederation stood. Even if this is true, what concern is it of ours? Let the humans and Vorkin fight. The rest of us can stay neutral. You can't be neutral, Krell argued. The Vorkin are framing this as a council-sanctioned action. They're telling their allies that Earth is a threat to galactic stability and must be brought under control. If they succeed, it sets a precedent. Any species that shows military strength can be attacked preemptively. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several species shifted uncomfortably. The precedent Krell described threatened everyone. Thrain stood, commanding attention. The Council must make a choice. We can intervene and prevent this war, or we can stand aside and let it happen. But understand the consequences of inaction. If the Vorkin destroy Earth, they will have proven that aggression pays. If Earth destroys the Vorkin fleet, humanity will emerge as a dominant military power with no reason to trust the Council. Either outcome destabilizes everything we've built. What do you propose? Asked Ambassador Sira, from the Luminian systems. We send a Council peacekeeping force to Earth's solar system, Thrain said. We position ourselves between the combatants and make it clear that any attack will be met by the full military might of the Council. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported the idea. Others called it overreach. The Vorkin delegation walked out in protest, their departure sending a clear message about their intentions. While the Council argued, Jake Morris watched the same intelligence from his command center on the lunar base. The tactical display showed the Vorkin fleet assembly point, a remote system 3 jumps from Earth. They're not being subtle, Amy Chen observed. It's like they want us to know they're coming. They do, Jake said. They're trying to intimidate us into surrendering or negotiating. They think we got lucky last time. Did we? Jake smiled grimly. Luck had nothing to do with it. But they're about to learn that the hard way. General Grant appeared on the main screen, calling from Earth. Commander Morris, you're authorized to begin Operation Steel Curtain. Deploy the new platforms to the outer system. If the Vorkin want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Understood, General. What about the Council? The Council is debating. Let them debate. We're not waiting for permission to defend our home. Over the next 3 weeks, Earth's military machine shifted into high gear. New weapons platforms launched from hidden facilities. Ships that had been in reserve were activated and crewed. Scientists worked around the clock to deploy experimental systems that had been in testing. But the most significant development was happening in the asteroid belt. Human engineers had converted dozens of large asteroids into mobile weapons platforms. Each one was equipped with fusion engines, railguns, and missile systems. They were slow, but nearly indestructible, and they packed enough firepower to cripple capital ships. Krell watched the human preparations from a monitoring station on the Council vessel. He had convinced Thrain to send a small diplomatic ship to Earth. Officially to mediate, but really to observe. They're planning something beyond simple defense, Pax said, analyzing the human fleet movements. Look at the positioning. They're not forming a defensive perimeter around Earth. They're creating attack corridors. They're going to strike first, Krell realized. They're going to hit the Vorkin before the Vorkin reach Earth. A communication came through from President Murphy. His face appeared on the screen. Calm, but determined. Ambassador Krell, I wanted you to hear this directly. We've decided we can't wait for the Council to act. The Vorkin are planning to attack us, and we're going to eliminate that threat before it reaches our system. This isn't a request for permission. It's a courtesy notification. You're starting a war, Krell said. No, Murphy corrected. We're finishing one. The Vorkins started this when they sent that first fleet. We're just making sure they understand the consequences of their choice. The Council will condemn this action. Let them condemn it from the safety we're providing. The Vorkin wanted to make an example of humanity. The transmission ended. Krell stared at the blank screen, knowing that everything was about to change. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vorkin assembly system exactly 12 hours later. Jake Morris commanded the operation from the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the carrier designated Atlas. Around him floated 200 combat vessels, with another 300 drones and automated platforms forming a perimeter. Sensor sweep complete, Amy reported, counting 374 Vorkin ships, plus allied forces from the Krithian League and Mandoth clans. Total enemy count at 560 vessels. The numbers should have been daunting. The Vorkin had nearly 3 times the ships. But Jake had learned something important from studying galactic warfare. Most species fought with caution, following established doctrines and rules of engagement. Humanity had no such doctrines. They had only one goal: win decisively. All ships, execute Alpha Strike on my mark, Jake commanded. Target their command carriers first. Fire at will. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of missiles launched. But these weren't standard ordnance. Each one carried an electromagnetic pulse generator strong enough to disable shields and electronics in a wide radius. The Council species had developed EMP technology centuries ago, but considered it too indiscriminate for honorable warfare. Humans had no such concerns. The first wave of missiles detonated across the Vorkin formation. Shields flickered and died on dozens of ships. Emergency systems struggled to reboot. In that moment of chaos, the second wave hit. Kinetic kill vehicles. Simple tungsten rods, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through unshielded hulls like paper. 16 Vorkin ships exploded in the opening salvo. 20 more were crippled, venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. On the Council observation vessel, Krell watched in horror and fascination. They're not fighting a battle, they're executing a slaughter. The Vorkin fleet tried to respond, but their formations were in disarray. Their commander, a veteran of 40 campaigns, had never faced an opponent willing to throw away the conventions of civilized warfare. He ordered his ships to scatter and regroup, a standard defensive maneuver. It was exactly what Jake wanted. They're breaking formation, Amy announced, implementing pursuit vectors. The human ships split into hunter-killer groups, each one targeting isolated Vorkin vessels. The asteroid platforms that had been towed to the system edge activated their fusion drives, lumbering forward to cut off escape routes. They were slow, but their mere presence forced the Vorkin to choose between fighting the fast human ships or avoiding the massive weapons platforms. Admiral Korvan of the Krithian League, commanding the Allied support fleet, watched his Vorkin allies being destroyed with growing alarm. He had joined this coalition for profit, expecting an easy campaign against a primitive species. This was something else entirely. All Krithian vessels, prepare to jump out of system, he ordered. But the humans had anticipated that too. Small, stealth ships had been deploying jump inhibitor satellites throughout the system for the past 10 minutes. When the Krithian ships tried to engage their faster-than-light drives, nothing happened. "Jump drives are offline," his tactical officer shouted. "Something's interfering with the field generators." "Then we fight," Korvan said grimly. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The humans demonstrated tactics that violated every principle of honorable combat. They used the debris of destroyed ships as cover. They sacrificed damaged vessels in ramming attacks. They targeted life support systems and engines, leaving enemy crews stranded in disabled ships rather than granting them quick deaths. It was brutal. It was effective. It was terrifying. Jake watched as the tactical display showed the enemy fleet falling apart. 3 hours into the battle, half the Vorkin forces were destroyed or disabled. The Krithian fleet had surrendered, broadcasting their capitulation on all frequencies. The Mandoth clans were trying to flee despite the jump inhibitors, their ships burning hard for the system edge. "Incoming transmission from the Vorkin flagship," Amy announced. Jake nodded. "Put it through." The Vorkin commander appeared on screen, his scales darkened with rage and humiliation. "You fight without honor, without mercy. You are savages." "We're survivors," Jake replied. "Your people came to exterminate us. We're simply returning the favor. Surrender now, and your remaining crews will be treated according to our standards. Continue fighting, and we'll destroy every ship you have." The Council will condemn this massacre. The Council can condemn whatever they want from the safety we provide. Your choice, Commander. Surrender or die. The Vorkan commander's scales paled. After a long moment, he transmitted his fleet's surrender codes. The battle was over. Back at the Council station, Thrain watched the aftermath reports in stunned silence. The human fleet had achieved total victory with minimal losses. They had destroyed or captured 612 enemy vessels. They had demonstrated technological and tactical superiority that made every species in the galaxy reconsider their assumptions about humanity. "What do we do now?" Pax asked quietly. "We adapt," Thrain said. "The galaxy has a new power, and we need to learn how to coexist with them." Krell entered the chamber, having just returned from observing the battle. "The humans are sending a delegation here. President Murphy wants to address the full council." "What will he say?" Thrain wondered. "Probably that they're willing to be our friends or our enemies, but they won't be our victims." 2 days later, President Murphy stood before the assembled council. The chamber was silent as he spoke. His words translated into 40 languages simultaneously. "The Vorkan attacked us twice. Both times, we defended ourselves. We don't want to be conquerors. We don't want to dominate the galaxy. But we will not allow anyone to threaten our existence. From this day forward, Earth is a sovereign system under human protection. We welcome trade, diplomacy, and friendship with any species that approaches us in good faith. But understand this clearly. Humanity earned its place in this galaxy through preparation, sacrifice, and the will to survive. We're here to stay, and anyone who challenges that will learn what we've spent centuries teaching ourselves. That sometimes, the best way to keep the peace is to be ready for war." The Council voted that same day to grant Earth full membership status with all associated rights and protections. They had no other choice. The galaxy had watched in horror as humanity revealed its true nature, and in that horror, they found a grudging respect. Krell later wrote in his personal journal that day, "We spent centuries wondering if humanity would be ready to join the galactic community. We should have been asking if the galactic community was ready for humanity."